Well, to start with, my name is Doug Busey, and I started turning in 2004, and I did some segmented turning. And then in 2012, I took a class from Malcolm Tibbetts, and he's a segmented guy, and he puts out a book. And the art of segmented wood turning. And it tells you all the different types of things. I'm not going to demonstrate a few of them as we go, but so how many people here haven't ever done a segmented turning? Okay, just a few. So can you give it the first screen? Okay. Well, someday you're just going to wake up out of bed and say, well, I'm going to design a bowl. I got to know how to design a bowl. Simple as that. And what that is that's a graph paper, 1/4-inch boxes, and it'll show you so you know how big a bowl you're making. So next. So once you put that the diagram up, you need to know how wide your blocks are. And so you can make these blocks any size you want, because maybe you want a bigger one down at the bottom because you're going to build a bigger base. So I always just add it, better to have a little too much than not enough. So next. So these are, can you pass those around? They're all the same, if you could just spread them out. So it's really simple. You cut a piece of wood in a length, like let's say 1.5 inches, and it's 3/4 inch thick. And you have to find out, you got to cut the angles, and then the edge length. The edge length is the critical part. Okay, because if you add other pieces in it, it affects it. And so next, so this bowl. This is 7 inches in the center. And this is half of it. And so this math here, can you go back to the math here? You see it says you get the angles for the segments by the circle is 360, and you're going to make an 8-piece ring. That's really simple, and you just divide 8 in there, and there's 45 degrees. And so the angles are 22.5. So then we need to get that base number, and you take the edge length for segments, take the diameter of the ring, which is a 7-inch ring, and multiply it times pi equals 21.98, divide by the number of segments, 8, and it comes out to 2 3/4 inches. So okay, the piece, the segmented piece there, you have 8 of them, and when you divide it by 8, you take a 45 off of both sides of that segmented piece. I don't know, is that right? So could you give me the next? Okay. So now that I gave you the math, you don't need it. You can buy these software programs, and they range from $40, which you're looking at, to $130. And So if you start over there in the left-hand column, can you guys see it on the TV? Okay. Okay, so that's the number of pieces. So it's 8 pieces. They're all 3/4 inch thick, and there's the different diameters to tell you how wall thickness, you put that in, and then the edge length is over about 3/4 of the way, and it tells you the edge of that segment that you're going to cut. And so to show you that they're all got the same miter angle at 22.5, and there's the only difference is the wall thickness. And you can see that there's 2 1.5 on the wall thickness, 2 2.25, and 3 2-inch. So if you have a board, that has, you can take that board and run it through your sander or whatever to make it exactly 3/4 of an inch. So now that we have it at 3/4, you could cut all of these. You could cut a strip that's 1.5 wide, and the board to be long enough to get those. And if you look over there at the 1.5, it says board length 13.25 inches, and the other 1.5 is at 23.25. So it's easy enough. You could, by just making the one board 3/4 of an inch perfectly thick, you're halfway to being good. Okay. And then you just cut these off at the 1.5, the 2-inch, and the 2.25. So now you have these strips of wood. It's segmented project planner. The accuracy on when you're doing segmented turning, especially when you get into, when you really get into doing the finer stuff, your accuracy is very important. So your tool, you have to make sure that your tools are set right. Saw blade, 90 degrees, all of those things, make them right, make them exactly where they're at. So after you cut all of your segments, you want to check them and verify that there's no gaps in any of these. See, that's 8 pieces. That isn't 8 pieces anymore. Yeah, that's okay. Oh, I see the other one. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just do this a little early. That there are many ways to glue these together, and or let's say that when you do that first one, I'm not sure you can see this. Do you see the, where's that? Yeah, okay. Let me just lay it there. You see right here, there's a gap. You see that gap that's still there? Now, that's impossible for you to measure and try to fix it. But the thing is, if you take the time to set your wedgie sled up, you can, just loosen this up a little bit and give it a little tap, and then make another, I use MDF, and make a test ring to make sure this is straight. It might take 2 or 3 times to get it so that there's no gaps. And And if by chance there is a gap, here's the fix it all. Here's the fix it all. You put, this is a dowel cut in half, and you can put that in there and then just glue up this side and this side. And then you can take the two sides and put it on your sander to make that straight and that straight to put it in, to come together square. Well, that's okay until you start really, when you start doing like this, you want to make sure that you don't have to do this. Because what it actually does is reduce the size of both halves. And so when you line up the line of these, when you're gluing them together, they're not all the same anymore. So now we're going to cut some. No, that shows up. What you saw there, it went from a very small thing, but out at the very end is the only place it's touching. And so if you just, there's still a little gap. So here's the wedgie sled. And this is there's a tool for safety. You need a tool, if you can see the angle on that. There we go. See the angle on that piece? What that's for is to, when you're running your boards through to cut them, so here we are and we're cutting, and this thing slides across until the blade gets all through it, and that makes it go off to the edge, so you don't have that runner next to the saw blade and have a kickback thrown at you or something, because if you do 10 of these at the same time, you've got a real mess if you don't have this here. You will hear lots of ideas from segmented tournaments about the way they use them, and that's some of the stuff that that's good for us. Okay, so I'm going to show you another safety device that's kind of different. So the blade is running between this piece and the thing. So when you go to cut this and you cut it, that falls off. Okay. So the piece is there and you push this and it takes this. And then when you pull it back, it throws it all the way across there, okay? So, and that's on the internet. There, if you look on the internet, you can find that, but it takes a little more work to do the thing, but it's just another wood turner's option. So we've got all the pieces cut off, and we're still alive. And so now we're going to talk about gluing them. So one thing you did when you cut them, that I forgot to tell you, see the lines on the blocks? You always want to have those lines the same way. So when you're done, you put those lines on there before you cut. Now you know what side's up. So now we're going to glue it. And there's many ways to do this also. This piece, if you, when you know what size it is, you can have, you're going to do many of these, right? This isn't just for one. And so you can leave the nail in. Okay. And so what you do is you put wax paper on this board and put the nails in it. And then on the same, if you let the wax paper be a few inches longer out here, you just take and make a gob of glue, and you do that, put it back in there and push them together, do that. And that fast, you can get all of that, the glue in pretty easy. And then you can take this off. Original tight bond. Because when you get to buying, doing the other things, they're for indoor. They're not for outdoor. So okay. So the reason for that is, you set your saw and you tested that it was, you tested the angles and they were good. So your setup was fine. So now when you do this, so now you can do this. And I missed one thing. I want to tell you that after you get done cutting all of your pieces, that you need to do this on both sides, because when they cut, sometimes it leaves a little tang or something out in the front there. So it's well worth the time again to do that, and then they'll all come out the same. So that's the first ring. So what we do is, when I'm going to glue up a glue block to put on a lathe, I do this. I make this, depending upon what size it is, and I cut a little bit of depth in here, so that when you put that bottom ring on, and you want to put that bottom ring on, and the bottom, when you get through, you need to finish the bottom. Well, at this point, you could, after you glue it, you can drill this out and put a dowel in there. And even though it's overhanging on the other end, it's very simple to grind that off, as opposed to having a lathe to do that, to put the bottom in. There's many bottoms, they have floating bottoms. They have, buy that book, okay? And so anyway, we get the first ones on. Now we're working our way out. Got a couple layers and got another one. Well, if you see here, I put a line on the 4 edges, okay? And then on this, these lines are looking at our pencil marks, and that's where where I want to line up. So when I put this on here, if you put that line on each four setting, then you're on there perfect, okay? It would center itself if you put those in. Yeah. By the way, let me do this. Let me get this off here. Okay. So that's exactly that. And you put it, you're gluing it here, and this goes on there, and that'll center it right off on the first one. That's good for a couple of layers, depending upon how. I mean, it would work on that one. So that's the first one. That's the first one is centered, and that's got that. Yeah. Okay. And so as you go to each one, as you do these lines, I still use this, no matter what you put out on this end. I put it, even a flat board, such as I'm going to put this ring on, this third ring. Okay. So I have this, and you can put this in this ring, and you can get it. You can see in there that either the inside or the outside are all exactly the same. Or if you want to get out your micrometer, you can measure from the edge of this and make it straight. But so then you take a glue gun, hot glue gun. You need two, just 1, 2. And a minute later, this is mounted on so now you have that on there. Now, when you start using this, you need to make sure that the headstock and the tailstock are perfectly aligned. So you take a couple of these, one on each end, and you bring the tailstock and the headstock together and make sure that they go point to point. Otherwise, adjust your your lathe accordingly. And so now that it's correct, you know that you put this ring on here, and here's this thing all centered. And when you shove that in across it, that puts pressure on the whole piece of board. Okay. And this is the one that you just, when it dries, I take a razor blade knife and put a slice in those two pieces of glue, and then you can just pop that right off. And then no, the glue, you're talking about the hot glue? Oh, I just glue up one, and then when you get it there, you can put your lock on here and spin this, and then you can see that everything has got glue where it belongs. Okay, so you got one of these probably. So the glue is there, and it just cleans it right off, and you're ready to pick the next piece on. Okay. So this gluing, you saw that I used rubber bands on that sheet, but there's many ways to do it. On our Denton Woodturners, if you look up Sam Slovak, he made one that's adjustable with tape to do it. And other people don't like rubber bands. They use this, just regular old. Huh? Yeah. Oh. But there's so many ways to hold that, and people, when this comes over here, you could take your clamps and put the clamps around the two pieces you put there, you know, but then it can shift. Then you're fighting the lines to do it. Where this way, it's there. Okay. Oh, no, you can, when you put this in there and you put it up tight, tighten this thing up, okay? About an hour to 2 hours, you pop it off and put another one on. Yeah. I wait a day to turn it, but you know, it's, yeah. So I've been working on 2 of these at the same time. And it's a bowl. These are bowls, right? Now you've turned them inside and you've made sure that you measure the width of this and the width of this. And then you got a perfect bowl. Okay. If it isn't aligned, then it won't come out that way. So then this is the reason for this center piece of wood. And so when you're doing this and you want a small center, you can take a piece and glue it to here, and then use your cutoff tool and maybe 1/8 of an inch, and you can get 3 pieces out of this with an 1/8 of an inch cut, and use on another bowl or whatever you're. Okay, but that this has to all be set up so that it's square. Okay, now that you all know how to make a nice bowl, right? You're through making bowls. Now the fun part comes. How about making one of these? It's really simple. You just take a piece of and a thin piece of maple, okay, and you cut yourself. Whoop! Boy, I got the drops today. And then you have a small piece. You put it in there. And what you have to be careful of when you begin to do this is that makes it's an 1/8 of an inch 8 times. So it adds 1 inch. And so now you have to make sure that you change the face, on the face to cut it, to make sure you figure in that 1/8 inch you put in there. So you do that, and all this is two types of wood, 3 types, windy and so you just got to make sure you track yourself to make the other wood is the same way. You know, you put 2 of these together, and it would you put 2 of them together. You just got to make sure. And I have to say this: one of the things I'm going to do is build one that's like this, because you see, if you did this like this is equal on both sides, instead of being up like this in a vessel, it would turn, and you'd get an effect where these lines are going to be at an angle when you cut it, because the bowl is, and then you're going to come over and the other side's going to be a reverse of that, but they're going to be at angles, which would be a nice feature to look at as opposed to this straight up one. That makes sense? Now I'm going to give you a, go a little bit deeper. And this is my Indian blanket. And, you know, all segmented turning takes more than just turning the ball out of wood. And so you have to be very accurate doing this type. And I'm going to try to show you here how that. Okay. So when you're going to make this, this is what it looks like, and we got to cut the small pieces and the two different size pieces. Okay. So I forgot to say something about when you're putting those rings together. As you add a ring, you get it as flat as you can with your tool, right? Then you have to make sure that it's truly that way. So you put pencil marks on here. Okay. And then you take, this is 150 grit or 220, whichever you, and so you turn it down to 500 RPM, and just, you don't put a lot of pressure, okay? Because the spray on 3M glue, you put it on the paper, not the wood. And then when you're close, you put your pencil lanes on there. When they go away, it's flat. So you don't have any gaps, you know, but so what you do is this is where you need accuracy, okay? You got 4 colors and they're all the same. They're all the same. They're 7/8 on one side, 3/4 on the other. And then you can see that it doesn't take much wood to do this part of it. These 2 pieces, a lot of them, but there's, and then same thing with this piece, a little more wood, but, and you put the colors together however you want to make this design. But you gotta, I mean, feel that this has got to be, it's got to be that perfect when you're doing it so that it glues up and square. So you got all your pieces cut. And it's time to glue them. So this is a weak clamp compared to one of these others. That's a lot weaker than this. And the reason is Okay, you see it left a gap there in the middle. And this is, you're all set to go here. Now we're going to glue it. Same thing. You know, you just glue one side, put it up here and make sure it's got glue on it. And one of the things I do, can you see this groove in this out from? See that groove in there? So then I put wax paper on this, even though melamine's really good. I put wax paper on there and take it, and then I take a razor blade knife and cut that. So now when I put the glue, any glue back there will go into the back and won't set them off, you know, in a. So here we are. We got glue on them all now. Okay, got them all glued. And then we take this piece here, and I want you to watch the gap. Yeah, when you squeeze this in, now that made all of them tight. Okay. And then you can take these and put real clamps on it, by the way. Okay. You do these two with that while it's still glued, okay? Now you're ready to move on, and so you can take this off and put another good one on there. Same thing. And again, and that really fixes all of these. You know, it's you can keep them flat, that, and go away and wait until the next day before you remove these, you know. Okay, so now we got them this way. Here we go. Do a great job, right? Now you got to sand these down, and you don't want to do this small one. This small piece, you see, this is only half of this. And the key is, I was putting my head right there. The key is that that center, the two in the center are perfect. You see the points, right? Well, if I was off a little bit on the other lines, you'll never know. You can look at it this way, right? But if I happen to make a little error, the only one that really counts is that one that just you have to have this square, okay? So what you have to do is I take a micrometer and measure this after I've run it through I have to take enough off to get it smooth, okay? And then I measure all of them. You see some of them have, can you see on there that says -5? Does it show up? No. That's -5 from wherever I was at. And this one's a -5. So we're going to cut this up now after we take another step. We're going to cut this into individual pieces, and the ones that say 5 will go there, and then you're perfect. You're in good shape. So now I'm going to show you how to cut this. So now we have to well, this is my push block. And you see there's a strip there. And this was the thickness of the pieces. So if you can imagine this in your table saw, the very first one that these are all together, okay? And you take the little part here and you put it here. And the reason for this piece is it won't, the reason for the piece is it won't be slipping backwards, because what you do is you put so you zip it through the saw, and the only thing that's left under there after you cut it right is this little guy. So now I just take this same piece. Now it's got 3 on there. I just put it right back on the same thing, tape it, run it through. And that's how you do each one at a time. You get 4 out of there, okay? So let's get these lined up there. Okay, you see the angle of this thing now. That's the way when you sawed it, it looked like that. We're going to change the way it looks. You take this piece, turn it halfway. Take this piece, turn it halfway, and leave it in the same, don't change its direction. Halfway, halfway. And now we have a new design, right? So now we've got those together. And so you see these are, now when you put the other half in, you could line up the center here. Okay. And so at this point, you have made the micrometer reading of this piece. And so you have to, since you flip them over, it's not, you can't see it anymore. So what you have to do is write it on this, like 0.5 or 0.1 to meet whatever size the initial one was, right? So now you got that, you cut it, you cut this in half, every one of them right there. Now you have a stack of those blocks. And it's time to make the wedgie. And you put this on your saw, and since you're still doing the same thing, if it's 22.5, you can use your wedgie sled and put this in here and cut it off whatever distance the face is. And then you have a wedgie, you have an Indian blanket. Yeah, and that's here at right now. I got 4 of them, right? So I can take and cut them here, and now all I've got are blocks. Okay, and all I got is blocks here. And so you put them together by that size, and this is when it gets glued. Okay, and there's another thing. If you were smart enough and didn't forget, you put a square down here so that when you do that, it comes back to this same. Yeah, 3 30 seconds. 3 30 seconds. Uh-huh. And oh, somebody asked something about that. Okay. So if you look at the first 7, layer 3, okay? If you go over to the edge length, you see it's 2 and 29 30 seconds. Under edge length, 3rd layer. So it so happens that my 3 30 seconds makes that a 3-inch face, and that's what I need to show you this. This little device fits in the right side of the saw blade, and you can go like this, and you can put measurements on it and whatever you want, and it clamps it down. And now when you're cutting this thing through the wedgie sled, you go like this and it hits this. And then as you push it forward, push the wedgie sled, and then each time you just go back to this and make it to this. This is your, yeah. What? Yeah, your length, yeah. So anyway, this is just something that easy to make, and since you're changing it quite a bit if you're doing a lot of. I kind of do them together because the feature ring takes so long, to make that, I do it, and you can go back and doing bold or doing the layers on the top and the bottom of the top and the bottom are only wedgies, right? So the center there, the custom ring, takes a long time. So they're both doing it at the same time. And when you get out there, you want to make sure that while this was apart in my last glue job, they're mounted, and so you make them, you finish the inside. And the only thing that isn't finished now when it goes together, there's a little bit of glue maybe that got out in the I can feel it here, bad quality. So, but that's how you get it together, and that's the only thing. You can get in there with a piece of sandpaper and clean that up. But that's how it goes. It goes all the rings, and the feature ring, it definitely takes a lot more time. So there's one. And you've got different, just by, you can do things up. So that's it. Yeah. I didn't count. It's really easy. There's 8 of those little ones, 8 times on each one, you know, so. Any questions? You're going to finish your next one tomorrow? When you cut this in pieces, you end up, you're cutting across here and you cut right in the center. That's why that piece is bigger. Okay, so now you've got room to get back and not have the inside be too short. Okay, so but then you just do it. You can cut the one side when you know where it is by measuring, but then you put a stop block in and do the second size, and now they're all the same.